Hi, I'm Gidon Ariel from Root Source, coming to you from just outside of Jerusalem at the home of Merv and Merla Watson. Wonderful people, beautiful people, and great friends of mine and of Root Source. We'll be hearing about them, their story, how they came to be friends of Jews, friend of Israel, and residents of Israel for over 40 years. So please be with us as we introduce Merv and Merla Watson.
The Feast of Tabernacles, by its title, talks about living in temporary dwellings called tabernacles. Our body is $6.95 worth of chemicals, but it's temporary. And we're living in this, but it's not us. Us is behind. Ours is, shall I say, like the computer. Our real person is software. The body with the bones and the rest of it is hardware. So it's the software that is a beckoning of the soul to worship. And Tabernacles is a reminder of God's faithfulness during the desert when people lived in temporary dwellings and celebrated their escape from bondage. So the Tabernacles represent a temporary dwelling, but one that reminds us of both our bodies in temporary, and our life on earth is temporary. So Tabernacles is a festival. It's just the last festival of the culmination festival, which is celebrated to remind us there's going to be a great harvest of souls on the earth, and this harvest implies that we've got to be looking in the right direction, draw us into this shall I say, into a relationship to the Creator. Which is a reminder also, the departure from Egypt was also a celebration of creation in that sense. So the Tabernacles is when people get together for a 7-day period, and they acknowledge a lot of things. They acknowledge that they're possible, their name is written in the book of life, so Chatima Tova, which is there. If they sense it is, then they're going to rejoice in Tabernacles. So it's a time of rejoicing and culmination when all of the essence of this 3,500-year trip of the Jewish people and several hundred-year trip of the Christian people, those that want to dwell in God in the future, with God in the future, plan to have this temporary dwelling, or whatever form it takes, to be there when he takes, all nations have to come up to Jerusalem to worship during this period of time in the book of Zechariah. So that reminds us that there's coming a time of fulmination when all these things will come together, and they will see a time when there will be great rejoicing and knowing.
So tell us about when you first came to Israel, and then how did you get involved in the Feast of Tabernacles here?
Well, we came on a tour that was organized, and we had tried several times to come to Israel, but either didn't have the money or wasn't the right time or goodness knows what. Finally got here, and my personal reaction was when the plane went down into the airport. I mean, I am not a crier, but I lost it. I was just sobbing. And Merv says, "What's the matter with you?" And I said, "I'm coming home." That's all. And I wasn't prepared for that at all.
And what year was this?
Oh, it was 71.
71.
You're asking senior citizens now. We don't remember a thing,
Actually, that's my department, is remembering numbers.
Okay. He can't remember a shopping list, but that he can remember.
Well, that's sure your business.
Anyway, yeah, and how that started was way back. We were in near a place in Toronto, and we were living with some people at that time because somebody was renting our own home. I forget why. And anyway, this person, after we ministered, came up with this little pamphlet that said Feast of Tabernacles. And she said, "I don't know why I'm giving this to you, but the Lord said to give you this." And I looked at it and I thought, I've read something about it. Well, that was the first seed that was planted. And then at that point, we had a huge young people's group called Catacombs in Toronto, which met in the largest cathedral in Canada. And we had about 3,000 kids per week. And it became quite Zionistic and, the whole bit. And we had Jan Willem Vanderhoeven come and speak to us, and one of his topics was the Feast of Tabernacles and his vision, and we thought, I wonder what, So, and then when we were here, after we came from Tel Aviv, where we resided for a year, we thought, it's not Tel Aviv where we're really supposed to be, it's Jerusalem. We had this feeling again, okay, Feast of Tabernacles. So we went to a Rabbi Pellet. Pelly. And we said, what would you think if Christians started to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles? Now, he could have thrown us out of the room. Legitimately, he could have said, look, that's our feast. But he knew more than that. And he slapped his knee and said, that's the best news I've ever heard. Because he says, that means to us as Jews that the Messiah is coming. He's right on the doorstep. So I wrote a song called I Hear the Footsteps of Messiah. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. And so and then, and the other thing is, we went down to the Wailing Wall one night in the midst of this, and we saw the Japanese Makoya group, with the big Star of David on their, and they were singing in Hebrew, and they had the Torah, and they were lifting up, and they were dancing, and all of a sudden I had this vision of thousands of people coming from all over the world. But they had to be in their international folk costumes so that the Israelis would see that they are from the nations. And now we have that during the Feast of Tabernacles. We have that. They come down. What a thrill it is to see the banners that say, Israel, you're not alone, not only in their own languages, but in Hebrew as well. Boy, when I see that, I just get goosebumps. It's a fabulous thing.
You're talking about the parade that comes
Yes.
every year.
During.
Tell us about that parade.
Well, it used to be the Batar football team, and other people. There's a march. I don't know how far is it, 10 or 20 miles of young people going to walking into Jerusalem. I don't know how long it takes them, but they in here. And they joined the parade. So you had the police and the army and the Navy, I guess, and bank managers and all sorts of people in this, originally the football march. Well, we decided that we'll approach the city and see if we could join up with these people. And so it started with just small contingents. And eventually it grew. I think last year at 1,800, we had 800 Brazilians, just one country, just one country. Oh yeah, and we had all sorts of. Today, this year was Asian. I mean, there's just no end of it. And so what is happening is that all these people are marching together, and they're in agreement that this march is important because it shows the unity. Because we have 108 countries involved, so there's representatives from all of them. As a matter of fact, there's more representation from the East and Asia than there is from the West. The West is kind of fading out in some ways, but Asia is taking it up. And so anyway, what it is becomes a receptacle that people can see visually, concretely. There are people all over the world that don't swallow the garbage that's in the media, but understand the importance of this place at this time.
So when was your first celebration of the Feast of Tabernacles?
1979. I remembered. And it was actually at Christ Church. But we had representatives from all over the world there, and representing musicians, singers, dancers, and everything else, but on a very small scale. But it gave them like an appetizer, because the Lord showed us that this must be royal. This must be solemn as well as joyful. And we wanted musicians that not just, just pick them up out of the cherry tree somewhere, but that these musicians would all be appointed, anointed, and they would be able to prophesy on their instruments, whatever. Dancers that are righteous people. Singers the same way. We had costumes. God showed us. As a matter of fact, our first costume for the first night that we did was all in silver and gold, and it was reminiscent of the priest thing in the temple. And when we had to go, and it wasn't exactly like it. No, we wouldn't do that. But we had to wend our way from the back of the auditorium and out into the halls and back in. And wouldn't you know, but we were met by a sea of ultra-Orthodox Haredim. And we thought, oh my gosh, we're going to be stoned, you know. But instead, they took their hats off and they said, Eze Yofe. So we were, wow, you know, this.
What does that mean?
Well, it means, you know, how fantastic or
beautiful.
how beautiful.
It was
And-
beautiful all this
Oh,
time,
oh, it was so beautiful. And it just had to be so royal, so majestic. If the King of all kings is coming, what are we doing with this stupid little chintzy guitar twanging thing? It has to be fabulous because, and just think of the temple, how gorgeous that was. And I really believe that now we're living not just the tabernacle days, we're living in preparation for that temple time. And it's going to be glorious, and I hope we will be included. I just want to see King David so much.
In that first celebration in 1979, about how many people and how many days was
The first celebration was 400 people. About a third of them were from South Africa. And so we were in there with the people, all sorts of different people. We had an Arab Zionist pastor from the north. We had the nephew of Corrie ten Boom, the same as for her, you know, he was there, and David Pawson, who is a very fine teacher, all these people. They were there, and so they attracted a number of people. The next year, it jumped to 1,500. And so because the Binyan Ummah, the big conference center, wanted like $38,000 for the 4 days that we were going to be there, we decided, I being a teacher at the Anglican school at that time, I said, look, we can do it for less than that, and we can give a donation to this field that needed help, you know, on the school. And we brought in, we had the whole thing under the trees at the Anglican school, and we had the whole celebrations, and it was 5 days. The wonderful part of it, we went down to the Qumran area, the Dead Sea Scrolls fame, and fed 4,000 people on those rocky hillsides with 125 buses, and it was all catered from the restaurant of the Mountain of Temptations just above Jericho. Fabulous. We had Cornish hen, looked like whale, and so on. So we fed all these people, and we had a terrific blowout time. It's still going on now, but isn't of the same dimensions. But that's explained it a bit. That's the starting of it anyway. And each year it's increased. So I would say we had an average of about 5,000 people a year for the next several years. It's been now in this 36th year.
And this has become really the largest Christian celebration in Jerusalem for sure.
Oh, yes.
That's right, yeah. And as it's been the high point of the tourist season as well at this time of year. I remember in 1981 there was a war called the Lebanese War, and people were canceling right and left. There was one leader that was going to bring 3,000 people, and I think he ended up with 29 people on a bus. And so we had to commit ourselves to $38,000 debt, which we as the board of the new organization would have to pay personally. So we just prayed that people would come.
And you did.
When we walked out on stage, there was 3,400 people there. And that just was like contrast to all these people who had canceled. Worried about this, worried about that. All these people had canceled other organizations, but ours. And this is the kind of people that we have drawn. All of these feasts are rehearsals. So the Feast of Tabernacles is a rehearsal for the very end of things. That is when things are resolved. And so it's important that we are reminded that there will come a time when everything is resolved and our hopes will be realized. I mean, the national anthem here is Hatikva. Well, what are they hoping for? They're hoping for a resolution of these things. When the kingdom will be in place and all of this there'll be a sense of God is ruling, and no longer will it be the kind of the tragedies that we experience now.
Over the years, can you put into words what you think the impact of this feast has been?
I don't think you can really estimate not until we're in glory will we know, because we're so busy working to that end that we don't really look at the results. We do see an increase in tourism here. We do see that every year it seems to grow. And not only that, but Christians are celebrating the other feasts as well. And it's wonderful. And we've done even in the Philippines, all the biblical feasts to a church of 20,000 people. They just loved it. They put it all together in about 2 days.
Well, the Filipinos, they love to celebrate anyway. They get all decked out and it's marvelous. There's the Spanish touch with these ladies with these large shoulders on it. And right?
I was just going to say that our basis for this is the scripture Isaiah 56, which I read all my life. But at different times in your life, something you see in scripture you never saw before. Why was I so stupid? Why was I so blind? There it is right in front of me, because it just very clearly says that the sons and daughters are the Jewish people, but the vine dressers and the foreigners are us guys. And it says that if we keep the Sabbaths, and it's plural, which means not only the seventh day but all the biblical feasts, God's going to give us a great name. So we decided, okay, we're going to do this, and okay, we come together at Tabernacles too, and we also celebrate Yeshua's birthday, because that's when he was born, not during December the 25th, but then. And so we sing our Christmas carols then, often with Christine Dar's group. If we're going to do anything, let's do it then. But also, as a musician, God has given me about 80 songs of worship just for the Feast of Tabernacles alone. So I could see that with any great move of God, there's always music that's created especially for there. And so I challenge anybody out there that if they don't have enough music written, worship songs written for any of the biblical feasts, I've got piles of them. And they are there, and God really, really, really uses them. And I wanted to say a P.S. here. It's taken us years, and others that have followed, to get the Christian body to get behind Israel, to support it in a tactile way, not just say I love Israel, but to do something, with no strings attached, just to bless them, period. But the next step is coming, and that's not just support of Israel, but it's identification with Israel, and the feasts are all part of that.